Join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Dan, would you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Klein.
Here.
Alderwoman Flaghorn. Here. Alderman Fahy.
Here.
Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Bennett.
Here.
Alderman Eidman.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Steiger. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move to approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. No presentations. Personal appearance, no.
Demolition, item 3, and demolition is complete at City Hall. Demolition, item 3, and demolition is complete at City Hall. They put in the ceiling insulation and the drywall. Looking at wall construction probably starting next week. They're putting up HVAC this week. So things are moving along.
Okay.
Doing pretty good. We pulled out a lot of junk and it looks pretty good now. City Hall Committee met to review a single bid that we had for the boardroom audio video installation. And we put this on the specifications that it couldn't be over $50,000. That's what the committee felt that needed to be capped. The one group that did reply came in at $62,479. Sat down with the committee. We kind of went through what the numbers were for each of the individual parts, or a portion of the committee, I should say. Alderman Bennett wasn't able to be there. And we took it back to him and said, hey, if you just do the video part of it, it'll probably be under 50,000. Can we go with that? They've turned it down. They didn't feel it would be functioning as they would want it to function. So at this point, we don't have an audio video system for the boardroom to put in. So we're going to scramble and see if we can come up with at least roughing it in, and then maybe do something later that we feel is going to be satisfactory for that room. And I agree with them. I don't want to put anything that's unsatisfactory, not going to work.
So it's just a matter of you didn't want to spend the extra money?
Right.
No, yeah, the
The committee said no. Yeah.
The initial quote was, I think, $100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah. The original quote that we had, the numbers that we were looking at, we made some cuts even in that. And it's like, now we need to pull it down to 50,000. So.
Yeah.
But our problem, Happy, is going to be if you're talking about walls going in soon, then are we going to end up going back retrofitting fishing walls where we've got everything open now?
So the plan would be to wire it, future-proof it, and go ahead and
Okay.
wire it based on some of the specifications that I've been told about it, and we'll just rough it in that way.
Okay,
That
I like
was
that.
my question of the additional money and stuff, spend it now or spend more later.
I mean, now is a lot easier, but the advantage we have with that room is that we're open in the basement, so we can access if we need to drop something and run to another room to connect to an amplifier or to a control system. If everything was going to be boxed in, then it's like you have to do something at this point. But I think we can, as long as we do something with the walls, get in the wiring that we need, drop them down below, wrap them up, then we should be able to figure it out later.
But you're not talking about accessing the system from underneath or the controls or whatever. Those would still be up in City Hall.
Yeah, what we do is that all the wiring would be in the floor joists, and we just run it up into the mechanical room where the rack space is.
Right.
And that was the initial intent anyway.
So, but is this something though still later, we're going to look at a price increase or, and those are running rampant now on everything?
Yeah,
Was this a company out of St. Louis? I don't remember.
they're out of Normal, Illinois. They've got salespeople around different regions, but this was
I never
salesman's
know
out
that
of St. Louis.
responded to the RFQ.
So the initial group that I talked to, which was out of Cape Girardeau, did not respond. They were offered that, we put it in the newspaper, put it online. And this group I hadn't sent it to directly, but they responded. And they had good references, so we did check that out. And they may be willing to come back later if we decide we want to spend a certain amount, and they can come in and do it. As long as we leave it accessible. Item 5, Cochran Engineering came in Monday morning, discussed some of the issues that they found with 9th Street after doing the survey work. It's a 30-foot right of way. It's a thin right of way, and you can kind of tell that with the houses and their setbacks. So based on what we saw with utility poles, size of the street as it is now, we figured that a 24-foot wide street is the best way to go with it, but do a rolled curb if people need to pull off and park. And we would make that accessible instead of doing like a flat curb. And that'll give us enough room to get buses up and back. And then we should have drawings probably 3 to 4 months down the road, give you an idea what the whole project's gonna look like and what that estimated cost is. And it's probably gonna be $500,000.
So do they actually establish property corners there, or I've seen them up there numerous times and stuff, but so are the utility poles close to the property lines?
Yeah, but they're in the right of way. And some of them, I think they're away from the property lines. I think we had 2 or 3 that were on the west side, left side, as you're going up the street, that were pulled further out into the street. So we'll have plans to show you here soon. Potential government shutdown, item 6, at the Welcome Center, it will be affected by that. They do have a a volunteer that will come in and watch over the place for a time. We will have somebody there from Tuesday through Saturday, but we don't have anybody scheduled on Mondays or on Sundays and Mondays. At this point, if we determine we need to get in and work on those steps in the ramp and get them painted, because we've now power washed them and they need to be sealed, we may just close up Monday and do that so we can get it done. Otherwise, I'll come in late, do one half of it one day, and then come back and do the other part. So you do the ramp one day and then do the steps the next day. So we're kind of playing it by ear to see what happens over the weekend. Let's see, the item 7, Park Board approved the EV installation behind Main Street Park. Met with a certified installer yesterday. Kind of look it over. It's got the right amount of space and got the right amount of electric. So we're in good shape for at least the first installation. If we were going to put another charger in there, or if you're going to go with the tier 3, the higher end chargers, we don't have the electric there. But for the first one, we are set in pretty good shape on that. So we'll move forward with it. And then item 9, Middle Mississippi River Valley National Wildlife Refuge, final land protection plan has been approved. We've gone through all of the subdivision requirements to divide that property. Now they can do their paperwork and ask the levy district to convey it. Not sure how soon that's going to be, but we've started on that process and they're working on it from their end. We've worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service and their surveyors to try to come up with the right, everything was, to their specifications. So it should be a smooth process. It's just going to take a little time. But they're looking at it to improve on recreation, education up there. And eventually you'll see some trails in that. So it'll another tourist attraction for the area. And it'll get people closer to the river where we don't have a lot of river access.
We're working on that though.
Any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Move to staff reports. Chief Croak's not here. But somebody in his place here.
Good evening, everybody. You guys have handout the chief had made for our monthly stats. You guys have any questions about anything?
What's your name?
Brian Pollitt?
Brian is the assistant chief, a lieutenant.
Seems like our K9 officer is up and rolling, productive. So
Yes, he
all going well.
pretty active.
Good.
I don't have a question.
Thank you.
And, community development, David Bova.
Good evening, everyone. You got my report there. Under historic preservation, we'll have our workshop this weekend. So that's been one that's been in the works for 18 months due to multiple factors, but it'll be this weekend down at 167 South Gabourey. There are a few spots left if anybody out there wants to sign up. Supposedly it'll show you how to get a 15 to 20 year paint job on Woodclap Boathouse. We were not selected for the Paul Brune Historic Revitalization Grant you'll see there, but we are applying, and it's on tonight's agenda for a 2024 Historic Preservation Grant. This will be to fund a walking tour mobile app. So it's a little different than the ones we've done the past 5 years. That's something that's come up amongst multiple groups, Heritage Commission, downtown groups. That has been approved in other communities, Moberly, Kirksville, and so on. So we're hopeful that it'll get approved for us. You will see, I gave you a handout before the meeting, the amount of 16,000 on the original resolution I put on there incorrectly, so it needed to be amended to 21,747 when that, if that comes up on the consent agenda this evening. Of that 21,000, about 5,000 or 6,000 is payroll and indirect costs, so it ends up being still about 15,000 or 16,000 that would come from the city, and that would most likely be in fiscal 25. So it's not in next year's or the coming year's budget. If you go on the building department and code enforcement, you see the numbers there. Under the sidewalks that we've been talking about for a few months, we have one property left. That property will be worked on in mid-October by the contractor that we hired a few months back. So that is coming. We had one person left, one property owner left who was doing it themselves, and that was completed this past week. So of the 18 original, 17 are complete, one is left. Comprehensive plan, we should be having another public meeting somewhere around the end of October, so I'm looking forward to that. The RPC is getting close to wrapping up the vision development stage, so those are the items that we'll go over in that next public meeting. City county info, obviously there's some new possibilities that we're working on with the county now. One of them on the second page, Aldermen Steiger and Happy have also been working on this, improvements to the ferry landing. So that Happy spoke with Chris Kohler at the Port Authority meeting, and hopefully Chris will work with us on this program. We need to figure out how much area we're going to cover with concrete, and doesn't seem to be any issues with the core, but working with the property owners is another topic. Floodplain management, I've been giving you the updates on the river stage, which obviously varies day to day, up to 1.9 feet today, 3.5 by the end of the week. Ferry is still not operating, but we also aren't having a flood either, so that's a good thing. Property maintenance, you have the numbers there. 42 South Main, we went through a few months ago. That is all complete now. All of the abatement work there has been completed. And then October 12th, we will have another public nuisance hearing about 58 South Main.
Dave, you mentioned concrete at the ferry landing. I know when Joe had brought it up, they talked about blacktop.
It's probably concrete.
Okay, because that was one of the things I was questioning on and stuff, was under flooding and stuff.
Yeah, I
the
think
blacktop can float.
Yeah. And the costs nowadays are not that much different. So.
Any other questions?
Dave, do you have a time on that 10-9 meeting with RPC or?
No. I'll be meeting with RPC around 10-9, and we'll start hashing out public meetings.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions?
Thank you all. Thank you, David. And last but not least, Steve Wilson with Alliance. Hello, everyone. So everyone has my report, lots of good stuff in there. But I'm going to touch on the water line project, keep you guys up to date on that.
The project on 9th Street is complete. From there, they moved to Rozier Street, laid new water lines, pressure tested, sampled, moved all services over. The only thing left to do is a few yard repairs over there, and I think they have to put a curb in one location. From there, they moved over to Claymont. We had to do a hot tap. One of the valves we were going to use to shut the system down didn't work, so we used a hot tap and did it live. All the pipe has been laid on Claymont. They have yet to move services over. From there, they moved down to Oakwood. They've got about 150 feet of pipe laid on Oakwood. They got about 900 more feet to go, including services, driveways, and one intersection. So, and another tie-in at the other end. So, that's where they're at on the water lines. We do stay on them every day, make sure they're doing exactly what they're supposed to with the assistance of Cochrane's inspector. The other project I want to touch on is the electrical project at the water plant. That project did see some movement last week. They came in. There's a detached building for line pumping up at the water plant. They did get that one tied in. Citizens came in, shut down the power to the facility for a few hours. So we are running power through that building now. So, and they've started moving individual components over to that new system. I think they got a long way to go, but it's progress.
Any time frame on the parts we're still missing, or?
They're all in.
Oh, they're all in.
What I hear.
I don't know where to bring this up, but who's in charge of Christmas lighting and trying to have evidence that there is Christmas celebrated in this town?
So Public Works puts stuff out. As a city, we just purchase what we need, or we have what we need.
What about the lights that used to be on the power, on the poles?
You're not allowed to have anything mounted to the poles anymore.
But are we finding out why that is?
Because they're Citizens Electric poles, and Citizens Electric doesn't want us putting anything on the pole.
It's insurance.
But they are reconsidering that.
I haven't heard that.
Because
So you can check.
if they did before Christmas, do we still have the snowflakes in store? And in the absence of that, do we have any plan, do we do anything more than those inflated snowmen?
We stopped doing the inflatables. That's all we really have. Is the-
So we really have nothing.
They hang out. Yeah.
We're not celebrating.
I mean, it's a cost, and it's
Yep.
time to put stuff up. It just depends on where we want to put our priorities.
There've been a couple of proposals to do other things. I don't know where to talk about that.
It would be a work session. We can throw something in about
Okay.
trying to talk about what kind of things that you've heard about,
Yeah.
things that we can or can't do.
Yeah.
Steve, I've got feedback for you on Claymont. First of all, that was a great job. Looks like everything's going to work out well there. The only negative I have feedback-wise is the fire hydrant. So everybody's aware, if they weren't aware, they're well aware now that that's city easement, that's not their property. City doesn't really have to ask permission or have any kind of agreement with the homeowner to put a fire hydrant wherever they want to in that easement. I think everybody knows that, but my request is that in the interest of being good neighbors, the homeowner and the city, maybe if we could give some advance notice in the future, it's probably, maybe it's never going to happen again, but if you're going to set a hydrant, if that particular affected homeowner could get some kind of advance notice. Yeah, I don't see why that's an issue. Oh, we can talk about it. Cool.
That happened up on Rozier Street on 400 block of Rozier too. I don't think that homeowner, I think he's okay with it, but it probably would have been good to get some input from the homeowner and see if they can, sometimes just a couple feet might not make the difference to the city, but it would make a difference.
On the hillside right before it drops off?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked to that homeowner. He was out there when they installed it and he was perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, he's okay with where it's at. He told me he didn't get a lot of notice, just the day of when it was going in. He's like, "Ugh, I'm glad it was okay." So
Yeah, we can definitely make sure that we make contact.
Is this an additional hydrant or a replacement?
On Claymont,
Additional. Rozier was a
New one, I think.
replacement, and that is an additional.
which we're thankful for. Houses are safer in that neighborhood, so
More is better.
more is better. We appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thanks, Steve. All right, thanks, Steve. Move to public comments. Okay, here we do not have any tonight. That'll take us to tonight's consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So, before you pass,
We gotta change that one.
okay, so 2023-67 hasn't changed
That's right.
language.
Make a motion to approve with the amendment that was handed out with the 21,747 amount.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Will take us to old business. This will be a second reading of bill number 4583. This is an ordinance approving a budget amendment to the city of St. Genevieve for the fiscal year 2023 budget relating to various revenue and expenditure increases.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Alderman Bennett, second from Alderman Eidman. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Fahey.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4583 now becomes ordinance 4504.
Thank you. Will also take us to a second reading of bill number 4584. This is an ordinance approving a memorandum of agreement with Alliance Water Resources Incorporated, a Missouri corporation, to modify the initial professional service agreement dated August 12, 2010.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Who's the second? Alderman Prince. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Fahey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4584 now becomes ordinance 4505.
Thank you. And then a second reading for bill number 4585. This is an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, approving the annual budget for fiscal year 2024 and approving an effective date.
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderman Steiger, that was you.
Second.
Okay, Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Fahey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4585 now becomes ordinance 4506.
Thank you. Move to new business. I believe there's, we're looking for an approval of a quote from Genesis Mass Notification System for an emergency alert texting program. I believe you should have that in your packet.
Discussion.
Yes.
When will this get started, do you think, Happy? If we approve it.
It'll take about 6 weeks to get it going.
Okay.
I think that's on the far end of that.
Is there any concern over those prices and stuff? I mean, they came in basically at half the price of the other two, roughly.
They offer the same functionality as the others. It's a reputable company. we like their interface better. So it just seemed like, yeah, it's kind of questioning, but I mean, I think it's also because you're committing yourselves
To 5 years.
5 years,
Right.
but, yeah. So we'll still have an agreement that has to come to the board, but at least we get working on it.
So this is actually not a bill. So how do we approve?
You're just approving the quotes, saying that this is the amount that you want to go with.
Does that need a motion to do that?
Yeah.
I'll make one.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll go to first reading of bill number 4586. This is an ordinance approving the TASER 10 certification bundle from Axon Enterprise Incorporated for the purchase, maintenance, and replacement of 12 tasers in an amount not to exceed $49,132.80 over a 60-month contract for the St. Genevieve Police Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
How about motion for a second reading of bill number 4586?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for the second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be a second reading of bill number 4586. This is an ordinance approving the TASER 10 certification bundle from Axon Enterprise Incorporated for the purchase, maintenance, and replacement of 12 tasers in an amount not to exceed $49,132.80 over a 60-month contract for the St. Genevieve Police Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Bennett, that was you second.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second, and we do a roll call, please.
Alderman Fahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Horn.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4586 now becomes ordinance 4507.
Thank you. Move to first reading of bill number 4587. This is an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Jokers Incorporated of St. Genevieve, Missouri on the 2023 paving program project in an amount of $21,005.
Happy, little discussion on this where we're, I see the need for it because basically we're stopped there now. And two, it was a type of equipment that had to come into play also because it's concrete over asphalt and stuff. But when we do our pre-bids or whatever, did they miss this or?
I think everybody missed it because we had all 3 contractors that put in bids on this project out there walking it. We talked about milling, but nothing was said about needing to bring in a heavier piece of equipment. Or we would have included that as, or understood to be part of the project. We looked at it, thought that, the equipment they had could take care of it. But Joker says that their equipment can't take care of it.
Just raises a question, but
Well, I would follow up with that, Bob. If you had 3 contractors walk the job site, and if you had one of those 3 catch that and price that in, they wouldn't win the bid. So we'd be in the situation anyway.
well, but this was an open, they were all 3 there together.
Right,
There was
right.
conversation between the 3, and I'm just wondering, was our engineer there also at that time? Was there?
Now, this is the last overlay project that we thought we could get by with that. Probably requires somebody to walk it and do some detail work to look at the individual streets.
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second that.
Yep, all click one hand. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Make a motion for a second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this will be a second reading for bill number 4587. This is an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Jokers Incorporated of St. Genevieve, Missouri on the 2023 paving program project in an amount of $21,005.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
Alderman Donovan,
Yes.
Alderman Beatty,
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Prince,
Yes.
Alderman Rainey,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4587 now becomes ordinance 4508.
Thank you.
I wouldn't.
This will be a first reading of bill number 4588. This is an ordinance providing for the issuance and collection of special tax bills and levying a special assessment against the lots, tracts, and pieces of land for sidewalk improvements.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other business to discuss at this time?
Any updates on adding members to the tourism board, KAC and TCC?
Yeah, Happy and I were just discussing, we do have a few interested candidates. The goal will be to fill, I believe, there's 2 vacancies
On TTC.
on TTC. The hope is to have those filled by the next meeting. And of course, if you have any input on that, please let us know. Happy to talk to.
Do we have any other committees that are short members, so we maybe pass the word around if you,
Park Board has one vacancy, I believe. And that, I believe, might be it. Is that right, David? Did you know of any under yours that have any vacancies?
No, currently full.
Okay. I think there's just the 3 vacancies then. Then I would like to thank Alderman Donovan for filling in for me while I was out a couple weeks ago.
Was weak.
you got it done?
That's not what No, but I do appreciate it, so thank you very much.
So it don't happen again.
If there's nothing else to discuss at this time, then I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting and move to work session. The work session to order. Move for approval of tonight's work session agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll take us to work session item number 1. This is weight limit on trash haulers.
So we had it brought up about limiting the weight of trash hauling services, whether by contract or by ordinance. Is there a way to regulate what the size the trucks are to haul trash? We have a response from our attorney on that, saying that it would be difficult to enforce that, especially because you have other trucks that would fall into that category potentially. And how do you measure it? The police department had to carry equipment to be able to measure how much weight is on a truck, and specifically with a trash truck, how weighty is it? Now, if you contract with a trash company, you could then say, you're gonna haul with this size truck, max. So there you have that kind of restriction. But otherwise, just putting a generic description in there saying you can't, because you're solid waste, would be hard to enforce. So, any questions on that? Do you want to move forward with them going with the trash hauler? So we can limit that, or,
I'm never going to be in favor of one trash hauler in the city of St. Genevieve, but
Second.
Yeah, I would hate to have cheaper rates and more services. I think it's something we should definitely consider for all citizens concerned, especially for the condition of our streets.
I agree with you, Jill, and stuff. And why can't, just like DOT limits the ability of people to be able to drive vehicles by the size of the vehicle, the weight restrictions that's put on the truck by the manufacturer, why can't we say, you can't have a truck licensed over X number of pounds and stuff, because that's where the weight comes in. The bigger the chassis is made by the manufacturer, the bigger you can haul. So DOT regulates the people who can drive those vehicles in several categories. 26,000 is the first, and then it goes up from there, Class A. But I mean, they're tearing up our streets. There's no question. We have competitive bidding or competitive pricing because we have these smaller companies now that have been able to come in that can't gear up and have 5 trucks in here over time. I mean, they're mom and pop operations, but Mark, I appreciate the research you did and stuff, but we've got to come up with something.
I'm not aware of any other city that restricts the weight by type of vehicle, or the use. You certainly can have weight limits on your road, I'm not saying you can't. You can certainly do that and enforce them. You just have to have a mechanism to enforce it, which is you have to wait. And they have mobile units, I have no idea.
Portable scales, they're about 10 grand, but you have to be calibrated, you have to be certified, to put it admissible into court. I don't even know what would be entailed into something like that, but
Well, the officer and officers have to be trained on it. Like you said, it has to be calibrated and maintained.
can you force them to go outside city limits to use
a weight limit case in probably since 1997 or 8.
I don't want.
But you can do it. You just have to have the capability to do it. Have to have essentially the officer has to be an expert witness.
we have some roll-on scales here close by. Could you force them to go to some place to weigh?
You'd have to have an arrangement with that.
Well, it's a private business.
Well, they're probably not going to want to get involved. And because they're not going to have any official immunity, they're going to be subpoenaed as witnesses every time. And you need to have somebody in-house that can be the witness, because otherwise, because the overweight tickets can be very, very expensive. The state tickets have a fine schedule that you're talking about a lot of times thousands of dollars in fines based upon the weight, the overage. And so, and they'll have attorneys that handle those wherever the guys get tickets, like either in-house counsel for a larger outfit or attorneys that deal with those tickets that they get picked up. And they know to find out if we have the capability to really enforce it, which you have to prove it. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you're going to do it, you got to pay for it. So you have to have the scales, you're going to have to train these people, and they're going to have to be able to testify under oath as an expert that this scale works, and this is the weight, and then the ordinance says you can't have a vehicle over that weight. That's how you enforce it. So you can absolutely do it.
But as Bob,
The problem I was addressing more particularly is whether you can have that weight limit only apply to certain uses. And I've never seen it before. I think if you really became aggressive on it, somebody would be motivated enough to challenge it. Because I don't know how you can justify prosecuting this overweight vehicle rather than that overweight vehicle because of the type of use.
Well, we could just say no commercial vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating over a certain amount, and that's based off the sticker on the truck. Now, if the truck's not got the applicable sticker, then,
Has to have.
yeah.
Yeah, it
Some of the
has to
trucks
have
that
to
are
be.
offering the best pricing right now are single axle, lighter weight trash trucks. Some of the bigger companies have dual axle trucks with the third overload axle. Those trucks are the ones causing the damage. The little trucks aren't. And the little trucks are already on the streets, and those are the ones that are gonna be forced out if we try to go to a citywide ordinance.
Not if we require the contracted carrier to just use those type of trucks.
I'm sure they have them in their fleet somewhere. They would just have to
But
bring them in.
I
for the
think
area.
to Mark's point too, you start getting into limiting dual axle vehicles in the city. I mean, we'd have to narrow it down to trash trucks.
This
and
would be
then
on
put your-
residential streets only.
But I know, but what I'm saying is we would have to enforce it for any dual axle vehicle that's on the city street. So a truck that goes up 4th Street that is not delivering trash, if it's a dual, if that's the line we're drawing in the sand, then how do you differentiate? And that's where we get in trouble, is differentiating
I mean, what gives you the right to pull that vehicle over?
probable cause.
But what's probable cause inside a contained vehicle? I mean, I don't know. Does the ticket get thrown out because?
Obvious from its appearance, like if you're gonna have the dual axle, if you're regular dead, you can tell how many axles it has. Yeah, but you do have enforcement issues, if you're targeting, maybe because you have to have some reason, some logical basis for a traffic stop. And so that's why, I mean, I understand the policy differences, but if you really want to do something about enforcing the weight limits of trash trucks in the city, absolutely the best and cleanest, I mean, it's that in my memorandum, is to have a contractual arrangement so you can put in all these qualifications and all these restrictions, and we did for it. And, like the city decided to do a representative or committee does that now. Most cities this size, many cities this size, contract and have haul. And that way you can monitor and deal with those kind of nuisance issues effectively, because it's a breach of a contractual agreement with the city, so that way the city can enforce something. And the truck is leaving, upward, or whatever you want to say, in the city streets, where we have a much better way to address that through the contractual agreement, rather than trying to track them down and cite them through the municipal court, which is really authority, especially now. But I mean, there's ways to do it. It's just how much you want to spend to enforce it.
I would, don't start to.
Hold on, Alderman Rainey had.
Squeeze in here before you, Eric. Do we have a particular specific list of streets that are being damaged by these trucks? I mean, I keep hearing street damage, but
I've gotten complaints from specific residents, like 5th Street over by the school that has numerous potholes as it is, and they've got 3 different companies that go up there, turn around and come back, so they're on the street several times.
okay, so the reason I'm asking that, are we going through a list? Are we addressing this problem in a different way? A street should be constructed for a trash truck to come roll over the street. So, I mean, I can guarantee you can bring your 2 axles or 3 axles to Claymont now without issue. So if we have a known number of streets we've talked about, Audubon, some are on the listing that we'll see later, those streets don't have a proper base laid to them. They were never constructed properly. So will we work our way out of this problem eventually when we correct that infrastructure anyway? And not have to worry about this weight restriction?
But that's assuming we go back with concrete on all of these.
Well, maybe not only concrete though. I'd have to defer to Steve or some expert, subject matter expert in the room.
Yeah, but what were we talking about to fix all those streets? $900,000 a year?
Yeah,
But they have to be
several
fixed anyway though.
decades before we
Yeah.
even close to. Unless we do
So
something.
I don't
tomorrow.
see getting 5 members on this board to agree to contracting with the truck. So, I mean, is Joe's suggestion terrible, Mark, as far as the limiting the registered gross vehicle weight, not necessarily,
Yeah, I mean, you can do
Because-
it that way, and you can designate certain city streets for the
yeah.
weights too. You know?
So anything that's not 61 or 32, or, you know, any actual residential city street,
I mean, you're opening up a can of worms. I mean, what about when somebody's delivering asphalt shingles with a double axle?
Yeah.
Well, but that could be part of the building
Or-
permit, right?
How's that? What do you mean building
It
permit?
could be built into the building permit. You know that's gonna be delivered possibly. They have a
you don't
building
have to get a
permit.
building permit to get your roof reached.
No, but new construction does.
Yeah.
It's not-
There's no new
it's not
construction in
exempt.
most of our residential streets right now.
I mean, we've talked about this, contracting and stuff, but why do we have to limit it to just one contract to one company?
Because that's the appeal of the contract for them, is they get a whole city's worth of business. They're not, otherwise we're in the same boat that we would already be in.
You also have efficiencies, so you have one, they're going to design their routes so that they're not going back up and down roads.
Could we,
They're going to design it so it's the most efficient.
But
way
Joe-
for them to do it.
could we limit it by business license, as far as if they're going to operate in our city limits, they have to abide by the contractual requirements?
So it's a solid waste permit again, or solid waste license? That's all another. That's what they.
Base that on the gross vehicle weight on their business license.
But it's,
They just, it's just.
they get a business license,
Right.
right? Yeah, they get a business license.
It's not a special kind. It's just a
No.
business license. Yeah.
But we could put restrictions on that.
There's a
Could we
solid
not?
waste section of the code that they have to follow.
True.
It's like we do on alcohol. Special.
So that way, it's kind of, to Bob's point, you're still allowing multiple people in. You're not restricting who somebody can contract with for their personal, but if they're going to do business in the city, they have to operate under these guidelines.
Right, right. So we asked them to fill out a form that just kind of details what they're picking up, how much they're doing that, because it's a collection for the region. But they could also be part of that license.
And like to Joe Prince's point, if we just base that on the gross vehicle weight, if you're operating and getting this business license to do this specific thing, you can't have a gross vehicle weight over this by the licensing.
Right.
Could work. Good.
So I keep going back to the comment you made, Joe. You pay a third now.
Yeah, we're at a third.
There's,
And I'm not a fan of big government. I'm not a big fan of the government telling the citizens who they can use and can't use. However, we have a vested interest in protecting our property, and that's the street. So if we can do that and kill 2 birds with 1 stone, I think we're,
keep a competitive pricing
Yeah.
thing going, and, right?
I think that's probably the best alternative to this.
We still have to do enforcement though.
yes.
Right.
And
You
so,
just have to
But that's
recognize.
an administrative enforcement at that point, isn't it? We're not going to be writing them tickets for,
It'd be a ticket.
would it?
So how would that work though,
A
depending
code
on,
enforcement ticket.
depending on when that vehicle gets weighed?
Yeah, because those vehicles can double from the time they're
Yeah.
empty to they're full is real common, but, you talk about enforcement, I mean, each one of those vehicles have to be licensed to that maximum weight.
And then that's
Yeah.
on the highway patrol to do random stops on them. I mean, they have portable scales and certified operators.
yeah. We can't contract with them to do that, I wouldn't think, can you?
With the state?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we'd have to have our own.
I mean,
Each one of those
Not if
trucks
we're
are
going
weighed
after-
we can,
at the transfer station, but I guess we can't.
notify them of our concern and have
Weigh
them
them
be
there.
vigilant on that if they have reasonable suspicion to make the stop and check.
But how do you have reasonable suspicion about what's inside the truck? That's my question.
I mean, if it's got the 3rd axle and you can see that it's squatting, that would be reasonable suspicion that maybe it's over the,
Well, they don't use the third axle, so how are you going to tell? I've never seen them drop the third axle.
It's down on every one I've seen.
Oh, not through town.
Once
Very
they're
often.
loaded, they are.
Yeah, they don't have to raise them like, well, concrete trucks do, but
I've never seen them drop the third axle. Well, then, I mean, that's gonna change their gross vehicle weight when they drop that third axle.
No, it'll change your axle weight. It won't change your gross vehicle weight. The weight is gonna be the same no matter what.
Correct.
But you have smaller trash trucks too. If you find out what size those are, then you set that as your limit. Because I mean, one of the companies uses a smaller trash truck. You have two. I know somebody drives a pickup, so I figure that doesn't. We don't have to worry about that qualifying.
Well, they have the truck and a small regular trash truck.
Okay.
But I mean, as far as trucks going up and down the street, it's not just trash. I mean, you got 3 different FedEx trucks every day. You got ground, express, and overnight. And then UPS is making multiple trips up and down the same place every day because they do their express in the morning or their overnight and express in the morning. And then the same guy delivers their ground stuff later that night, even if it's right next door. They still don't take it next door till later that night. So they're making multiple passes. Where do we draw the line? I mean, they're making more trips per day. I mean, we got trash trucks, 3 or 4 companies that make one trip through a subdivision a week each. And we have other delivery trucks making multiple trips up and down the same streets every single day. You know, I mean, where do we draw the line?
you're saying those trucks are overloaded too?
I don't know what they're supposed to weigh or what they weigh. I mean, I'm just saying, they're big trucks.
Well, we could what if it to death. I mean, the problem at hand right now and the complaints that's been brought is trash trucks.
Right. Right.
They're the most frequent.
Okay. So we can work up something. Yeah. Okay. How about that?
Thank you.
I guess it'll include, you'll come up with a enforcement, and the cost it's gonna be to buy the scales and do the certification and all
I'm
that.
not gonna do
How
it.
you-
I'm not gonna draft it so that.
How are you gonna enforce it if you don't have,
By gross vehicle weight rating that's listed on the truck.
yes,
And it's going to be tied to their business license.
correct, but then how are you gonna enforce that?
Pull their business license if they're
They're
in
using a
violation.
truck that goes over the gross vehicle weight rating of the truck.
It's listed
It's
on every
listed right
license
on the
plate.
vehicle.
It's a type of vehicle.
So you're not gonna allow drop axles?
No, because those are on the bigger trucks that we're trying to get rid of.
So you are restricting competition?
No,
You are.
You're bigger.
Yeah, you absolutely are.
No,
You're gonna
just
tell
tell them
Republic,
they
you're
gotta
gonna tell
comply
Republic
with
they
our-
can't,
they have smaller trucks. In a lot of places, they use the smaller trucks.
And to Joe's point, we're getting into the business of telling them how to operate their business then.
But we're in the business of telling everybody how to operate their business in the city. Like we restrict, like he said, liquor licenses.
Yeah. We restrict those. We tell them what they can,
We restrict people
When they
from
can
going
sell
door to
it
door to
and
go
what
sell
they-
vacuum sweepers.
not if they get a peddler's license, right?
They have the same thing. They have to abide by the business license, by better license. And they have to abide by the
But you're
terms
saying
of
they
that.
can't,
Those are unenforced.
just like they have to abide by the license on their truck. Their license on their truck is tied to that tag on the truck.
I know when Republic goes away, or you reduce them, and you get about 2,000 citizens that don't get their recycling picked up because you restricted the types of vehicles that Republic can use, you're taking those phone calls, not me.
Republic does do no more recycling.
Yeah, they got rid
Quit
of
it
it.
August 1.
Mm-hmm.
They're still coming to my house.
They still pick it up. It don't go nowhere.
Well, that's,
Yeah, it's trash.
They go somewhere other than his curb.
Right.
and you don't know when that might change, when the recycling market picks back up and paper's profitable or a glass is profitable or whatever the case may be.
To that
So-
point, we do have to consider that if we are trying to augment how these companies are going to do business within our city, that cost could be passed down to the individual consumer. That they have to change the way that they're
Certainly.
operating, and if there is additional cost to that. That could be a factor. I'm just.
And
just
that,
wanting
and
to
at
devil's
that point,
advocate.
they have time, they have the option of shopping for a better price somewhere else. If we went with a contracted service, they're still gonna pass that cost down to us where we don't have a choice to shop somewhere else.
No, I'm not arguing one way or the other here. I'm just
Well, you would
bringing
have-
up, or just
You
making.
do have the option to shop it when you bid out the contract, yeah.
Not as an individual.
Okay, not as an individual, correct, yes.
Okay,
So I mean, for argument's sake, and I don't want to put any extra work on anybody, but like Mark said, there are other cities comparable size that are contracting. Can we get a sample rate of what their citizens are paying for their service, just so that if that was an option that, I mean, at least we know some facts before we can argue or sit here and assume it will or will not get better rates than what they have now. I mean, at least know what we're talking about before we just guess.
Yeah, I'll reach out to some of the other cities that I know, and find out what their rates are.
The carrier would probably share that with you too.
Probably, yeah.
You could just ask Republic,
Yeah.
your average charge now, what if you had the entire city?
Well, I think though, and it will come down to what they offer, because some cities are gonna do recycling, some are gonna just do a bulk pickup and large pickup, household hazardous waste, all this other stuff. I think at least getting an average price. of what everybody's doing.
Get an idea.
Yeah, it'll give you
Republic will have a salesperson that's just in charge of government contracts that would probably love to share that information with you.
yeah. Do I trust them or do I trust the other cities?
Well, I mean, you can fact check them, I guess. I mean,
I
but
would rather,
I would suggest getting the prices from other cities.
rather than reaching out to a
Spreadsheet,
certain company.
Giving an estimate of what the costs
well, but
are.
Republic
Then
would give you,
go out
and then
to
you
bid.
could fact check a few that,
Right.
you know.
But and keep in mind that whatever contractual agreement you enter into, they're always going to have an option to just put it on the dump. So no matter how much recycling, no matter how much requirements you have for recycling, they're always going to have a carve out so they can always throw it in the dump. Okay, depending on cost. So they may pick it up separate containers. And you'll have a recycle bin for sorting, and so just keep that in mind. There's always going to be in the contract an ability to not recycle, even if you're hauling it separately. Because people think, oh, we're recycling,
Right.
and it depends on.
Is that Republic is doing that? They don't recycle? They tell you that? Do they tell you that? Or are they just quietly doing that?
Yeah, I think they notified everybody August 1.
They had
Well,
a sign
they're not
posted
taking
on their door
recycling.
when I was there, said as of October or August 1st, they would no longer be doing recycling.
Out there at the dump.
That's all it said.
Yeah, it's out there. They're not accepting recycling out there at the transfer station. But they're still doing curbside pickup. Now, they're taking it to a landfill, I don't know. You know, but that sign
All
that you
goes
saw
out there
is-
and gets
Right.
dumped in the same spot.
yeah. Well, sometimes they take the recycling trucks straight to St. Louis to that quasi sorting facility or whatever. Yeah, I don't know what's that.
Okay, so I think Mark's gonna come back with some research on that particular, with the business license, kind of, if there's a way to enforce that or a way to draft that. You're going to reach out to some municipalities to see, that have contracted service, to see what that may look like. And then we'll reconvene and talk about it. That sound fair to everybody? Thank you. Cool. All right. We will move to work session agenda item number 2. This is Progress Parkway Access Road. This is the portion of, this is that small portion that the city owns out there. Is that correct? Yep. Okay.
I don't see the other property on here. I don't know if
He
they-
was not, I didn't notify him until today, but it was on the thing, so it's,
Sorry.
yeah.
You gonna push it off till later or?
I mean, I think we could have this discussion and see where everybody's opinion is. I mean, I have a good enough sense of what his question is that we can at least pose it and see what everybody thinks.
Okay.
Would you like me to do that?
Yes,
Okay, so
please.
On Progress Parkway next to, and they provided the handout there. There's a property owner that owns the piece of property back behind that cornfield that's by the apartment complex. It's like a 60-foot wide section, goes back into his property. He approached the city about buying that stretch so he can have access to the property that he owns here. While he does have an easement on a family member's property, getting any heavy equipment across their private maintained yard is problematic for him. His question was what future use the city would have. The answer that he was given, from my understanding, was that they may annex the property behind at some point in time if they wanted to put a subdivision back there. His argument is, I own that property anyway, so if they're annexing that, then they just have to annex this back. But I mean, my understanding is it's deeded in a trust for his sons. He has some hope that they will build a house there when they come of age, and he wanted some access to that property. I see his point in that this isn't a big enough plot for us to do anything or build anything that I can see, unless I'm just forgetting about something, and I don't understand the argument for the future expansion to restrict him from having access now if it's something that we would just have to take from him later anyway.
So is this his whole piece?
I believe so.
Or is it
I
just
think it's just that.
just that narrow strip there? Happy
We
to,
get, oh, go.
the 5 acres that we sold to the same people that have the apartments, is that the piece that butts up to this?
Yeah, so there's that 5 acres on that side, and then
The apartment
church.
complex is 5 acres roughly?
They have an additional 5 acres, and then the church this is the property that we traded with the church for the other side of the road. So there's just a strip between the two of those pieces of property. He has asked for consideration to buy that. Again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and if you don't want me to, I won't. I knew that there was some concern that if later we needed to go back and reacquire the property, was he going to jack the price up and try to make money on us? He indicated to me that he would be willing to enter into some type of an agreement that should that day ever come, he would sell it back at what he bought it for. But again, that's something that would come contractually long after this, but I don't think that he's opposed to that proposition if that's what we wanted to do.
So he actually wants to build a road there?
He wants to, not at this point, but if his son's ever built back there, he would want the option to build a driveway to that property. So he's not opposed to them continuing to farm that. He doesn't want that to go somewhere else and then him be completely
Landlocked.
Yeah, landlocked.
So is this still all being farmed by the same,
Right now, yes.
this piece and that?
Yeah. And again, even if he did put an access road in there, it's nothing for a farmer to cross the street and go plow the other side of the street. They do that on properties everywhere. A creek bed is no different.
We have 3 different, is there any difference in these maps? I don't know where I'm
Well,
looking.
just,
Scale.
identification and just to give you an idea of where they're located.
So unless I'm not seeing the future use, I would be in favor of looking at a proposal to sell this to Justin. I just wanted some feedback from you guys as far as.
I haven't heard a compelling argument to not do that, so. I would
Well,
support that.
the only thing I think we should have is both property owners' input on either side of it, how they feel. Because it would affect, them.
How,
Well,
if they
one,
don't have access to it now, other than it being farmed, which we allow them to farm that portion.
right, yeah. I mean, I agree and stuff, but if we're allowing something to change hands, and there's 2 property owners, I think maybe just out of courtesy,
I see that. I see what you're saying.
right?
Yeah.
Just out of courtesy, I think.
So the purpose for it was because that property is landlocked in the back, we looked at it as potential conservation development in the future. We're not looking to annex it. It would be voluntary annexation, but it would be up to the property owners at that time. So if we had not done that, we could have just sold that property outright.
But I mean, I know
And it would
Justin
have been
owns
part
all
of the churches, and it wouldn't be an option at this point. So the idea is that we keep
This
it
might be Crow.
so that we have that in the future as an option as a city street. Whether they would sell it back, I mean, contractually, we can look into that. I'm not sure how tight that can be,
I
like a
have,
free clause.
I have a couple of issues. One is, I don't like having public discussions about sale of real estate, period. That should be in closed session. Secondly, there has to be a process by which we sell city assets. So, and certainly I would expect it's my understanding the property on either side of the strip, one's owned by the Archdiocese and the other one's owned by another party, correct? Well, that has significant value to them to extend their property line. So it may even have more of a value to them than this individual. This individual has access to their property for another easement. So you'd have to get competitive bids, at least solicited bids for the sale of this real estate, so that the city gets consideration for selling the property. And they, the Archdiocese may want to expand 5 acres or however long it is, or the other side of the line. I mean, having makes a point, it's a policy decision whether you want to keep it or sell it. But having a private party agreement where you're not getting competitive bids is a problem.
Could we, I mean, from what I get from that is if we were to want to get rid of that land, it wouldn't be specifically, we couldn't limit it just to him. We would have to put it out for competitive bid.
Correct.
Or get full retail value or whatever you were saying.
Anybody may want
Yes.
to buy that 5 acres.
So it would probably be out of what he would be willing to pay, I'm assuming, for what he's wanting to use it for. If our intentions are to eventually use it as a street or a right of way for that property back there anyways, then would we be able to grant him use of that strip for his purpose that he already wants it for, to access his property without even selling it to him?
Problem is it interrupts the farming that takes place there. So you've got row fields of corn, is what Michael Mayor's been putting in there. And you start letting them have access, then they have to.
But you're only cutting it by, what is that, how many feet wide?
60.
60 feet?
60 by
Seen this
500.
combine lately?
Well, I mean,
So can we just go into closed session and discuss this?
We don't have it listed as an option to do.
Happy, I'm going to clarify something here.
The whole
You-
purpose in putting that on for a work session so we could discuss it and have the options of it.
You used the term land,
You can discuss things in open session. You don't have to go into closed session, it's permissible. Just as the attorney for the city, I don't, my advice that if you're going to talk about real estate, you don't do it in open session or work session. For this very reason, because you're telling everybody what you might take for property. And so you should consider that, because it's not your property, it's the city property.
That's my fault for not writing down closed session on this.
But you can have an open session.
well, I mean, his concern and why he wants to buy the property is because he's afraid that he might lose access to his property. And we aren't planning on doing anything, so technically he will have access to his property and or whatever that word is, and because that's what we're wanting to use it for too, is to access that land regardless of who owns it.
If it develops.
Can we grant him an easement?
Yeah.
It was only, well, again, back to, if you do that, then you're interrupting.
We're taking
the farming
60 feet
that
away
takes
of
place.
farmland.
That's why
He
we,
hasn't.
yeah, he has access.
oh, right. Happy, because you used the term landlocked.
This as opposed to what he had.
We looked at it as an access point to reach the properties, not just that one. We looked at that one in particular, but you've got multiple properties. Everybody's gonna want access to get to the water park and the community center. It makes that more desirable to turn that into a subdivision in the future. That's why we included that as as a right-of-way strip.
You know, again, I'm going to ask for clarification. You used the term landlocked. You cannot legally landlock a piece of property, but you said that he had a legal easement,
He has an easement,
a legal easement.
but yes,
Okay.
Well, the question came up, does he have frontage? And he didn't have any frontage on the highway. So everybody considers it landlocked because it doesn't have that frontage for access to a right-of-way.
But you said he has a hard time getting in there with his machinery.
yes.
And if you look at it, there's an access road, you can see the access road that goes in there, Schultz Lane. And that's where they access the multiple houses that are back there.
I still think out of courtesy, we should ask the two adjoining property owners.
Or just,
Yeah.
I mean, I think more than anything, we need to discuss if the potential future use is worth holding on to it, or if we would consider putting it out to bid to see if there's any interest in it. I
Filled it in to get.
I don't see,
This piece is already pretty well locked.
I don't see the benefit of holding on to it to access a property that we don't have already. If we had that property, or we had property behind that we would want to access at some point, then I understand the use in that, but
Well, but you never know what private developer is going to develop a subdivision. So, I mean, just because we don't own it as a city doesn't mean that it might not have a future purpose for some good to the city. You know, so just because we don't own it doesn't mean couldn't be valuable to
but by
us.
the same stance, we could have the same as Winchester Village or whatever, the Windsor Village out there. He could put out a subdivision that's on county water and county road, and we get nothing from it.
Yep.
And that's absolutely what he would do if he was forced to do that, if he doesn't have, and I'm not, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, he doesn't have any more incentive to annex that in and put a subdivision in the city limits than he does just to use the county water and utilities that he already has on that property and have another county subdivision, and that doesn't benefit the city at all.
But our thought was, this could be 50 years down the road. At least we have that available in case something happens. But yeah, it may never happen. But
And the property that is an issue that one wants access to is not in the city.
Mm-mm. But if we do that,
Say that again?
could we, would he be willing to
The property that
access?
he is-
Annex?
has, it's not in the city. It's unincorporated.
it's all city limits.
Would he be willing to annex if we're willing to work with him?
What's that?
Is he willing to annex into the city if we're willing to?
That property?
I'd
Mhm.
say, I bet not. Farmers don't want to be in this city because you tell them what they can and can't do with the property, so why?
This is, yeah, so this is like right behind the Progress Parkway and
Mhm.
the all and all. So there's no zoning for anybody who owns this property in the future. But it's, you can all do what you want, but with no zoning, and you have a rather large parcel right next to the ball field and all that stuff. I mean, it's you have absolutely, the city has absolutely no way to regulate or restrict the use of the property. That is adjoining to the city and adjoining to the ball field. Which would, if you sell this roadway access or this piece of it, you have no ability to restrict what kind of development is put in on that property. It's a consideration long term.
Nor do we if we don't sell it.
No, but he's going to have to get different access into that property. It's not going to come from Progress Parkway. It's not going to come through the city is going to be able to have control over the zoning and the use of that property if he's going to use that roadway access. He's able to convey to the city and to the city.
That's why I said annex it, and then we might talk.
But we might annex it for no reason, because it still has to go out for bid.
But you have control over the use of the real estate. Meaning, right now, you have no zoning to be industrial. You know, you could be industrial, it could be commercial. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be, but you're talking 20 years from now, you have no control over whatsoever. Right now, it's I'm not speaking, that's, I don't know, speaking. But you have it's not hurting the city to have that available to access the property. But you have potential issues with somebody who's not subject to the city's code with emergency use of the property. You can certainly sell the property. My only objection is that you can't just sell it to some individual, not give everybody a fair shot at it.
His easement is not there. His easement is off of Schultz Lane, correct?
Yes.
So could we grant him an easement from Progress Parkway? And can the city grant him an easement? Because if we would, most likely it would be a road, it would be a street.
Right off, that's the property there.
I don't know if we have to actually grant an easement, because again, the intention is that it's right of way in the future.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
again interrupts the farming
Farming.
operation.
If he
That's
wants
my
to take
concern.
something through there while there's corn
Yeah.
there, then he can
Yeah.
legally do it and destroy all that corn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives here.
Or soybeans or whatever.
His sister's property that gives him the access.
And, oh, yeah, we don't.
Yeah, that's his property, right?
I can have him talk to,
I gotta do it in the future, I just,
the farmers that take care of that, maybe they can leave the strip open and he can use it for access. I mean, that's,
No, that seems, you know, if you could almost do a swap and move our property down to the apartments. And, you know, I don't know how wide is that, piece, that parcel? Was it
60 feet.
60 feet? See if the apartments would give us 60 feet in between and give them that 60 feet. And so you just be basically moving that parcel down.
They're gonna gain a little bit.
Who would?
Whoever moved down.
Well, yeah, I
This
mean,
is longer space.
if they, well, yeah, but,
It's minute.
and that would be to their advantage.
Mhm.
But if we ever had to build a road, we'd have to build a smaller road. So we'd be, you know, they'd have more room to build buildings, and we'd have a shorter road that we had to build. And then that would get him, the farmers could still farm the same amount, and we'd still have the same amount of access to that property. How about, what about a land swap?
I think you have elevation issues. What are you
Really?
talking about?
It's pretty flat out there, but those apartments, that's a flat lot.
Well, the apartments go, it falls off, and when it goes into a,
I think
with a
that
little
up here,
brown area.
I think
there's
this is a little elevator.
It's a low area.
Happy to swap also. I believe that 60 foot next to the apartments has structure in front of it along Progress.
Yeah, that's another.
Oh, there is. There's a build, there's a,
Oh, it's
Is that one of those coverings?
there's one of those coverings right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So that would have to be-
You got the street view.
That's why.
Right in front of, right on the, to the apartment, there's one of them buildings right there.
Well, you just have to make it. And then that would be the difference in the next workaround I get.
Okay, so in the interest of moving along, Do we have any kind of definitive path that we'd like to move on at this time?
Is anybody interested in that land swap? And then everyone wins. We still get the road. He gets the access. Still can be continually farmed without.
Well, should we push to a closed session?
I was gonna say, that's just,
I would suggest that the city is not necessarily, I'm wrong, I don't think the city really has an interest in working and getting facilitating this guy's access to his property. He already has access to it. I would suggest that if he has a proposal and he wants to try to work some sort of agreement between the other property owners on behalf of the city, and the city would help facilitate that. I would suggest that you do that rather than the city do the work to get that done, because it doesn't seem like it's, I don't know what the benefit of the city is to facilitate that property transfer for an owner that is not in the city. But it could work. Perhaps that person could work on that issue.
Yeah, fair enough.
his family that donated all that property in the first place.
Or you can just decide to
His family is the one that donated the property.
sell it to the highest bidder.
It was all his family property.
That road going back to the water tower, I guess that's our property.
County property. At this point, isn't the county property where the water tower is at this point? Yeah. Yeah, because he asked us about that and we had to send him to the county.
You what?
He asked us about that and we had to send him to the county.
Because that goes right back to the corner of this property.
I think part of this is also, it's not necessarily, Mayor Kime, if you know, correct me, that he wants to cross it, but there's a gentleman who farms the property and farms other property who wants to cross it with farming. But
I believe that to be the case, yes.
I don't know that the path by the water tower.
Because we considered that when you and I first talked about it some months ago, was trying to find a compromise where that county access road that goes to the water tower could be a decent compromise and way to get it done, but I don't think that area is wide enough for that.
Do you want the air back on, folks?
No.
Yeah, leave it up.
Okay.
Everybody sweating to get out of here fast.
So
Pass on.
Alderman Bennett, do you want to talk to this party to, I mean, I guess you could probably fill him in on our conversation. And if there's an alternative proposal, discussing that, he would like to discuss with the other property owners.
I feel like he went to Happy, he went to Dave, didn't get much satisfaction, and then the family was told that his only recourse was the Aldermen, so he's done that, and now he has still no resolution, so I can relay that to him, but I don't think we're being terribly reasonable, but
Well, if he'd like to discuss, as Alderman Steiger mentioned, if there's a potential land swap, we would listen to that proposal, assuming that the other property owner was agreeable to that. I don't want to send him chasing his tail either. I'm just, if he's had a conversation with, who owns?
Heisel. Mark Heisel? Yeah.
I don't know what his, if he knows that. Is that,
I'll relay back to him.
okay. Okay. All right, any other discussion on that particular topic? Okay. We will move to work session agenda item number 3, that is 2024 street repairs.
Take on.
Thanks, Mark.
So since we passed the budget, I want to give you a chance to look at the streets that these are all kind of the same level of how well they are in way of the asphalt or concrete. So I want to give you a chance to look at them, look at what the square footage is, estimated costs. Also, I've included some comments off to the side. Anything that we have over in the international subdivision is going to have to be redone. So you're going to have to rebuild those streets. And of course, they're some of the widest streets in the city. So there's going to be a cost in that, and it increases the square footage. But they are falling apart. Some are concrete, some are asphalt. I'll list it if it's concrete. And some things are underway that we're looking at. One is like 9th Street. We have engineering that we're working on that we should get the results back in a few months. So we can look at what that cost will be and then decide how we want to pursue it. We have North 4th Street. We've got a section of North 4th that has to be completed. We're working on stormwater at this point, trying to figure out how to make that work. And then that would finish the North 4th Street paving all the way from on South 4th Street at the state, all the way to the north end of the city. So that's important to finish up. The rest of them are options. It's just that the options are going to have to be engineered because we're at a point that we've got too much pavement and we don't have enough pavement. And we have sidewalks and other things to consider when we do it. Yes, sir.
Happy, I know Jeff and I have both been contacted by a homeowner on Spruce, that corner right by the entrance to the new hospital parking lot, that there's a real small section there that needs an overlaid bad. It's alligator cracked and it's kind of a trip hazard for people that are walking back there.
And Steve's supposed to be filling potholes there.
They were
next
just
week.
up there today too.
Okay, they may have
Jokers
done.
was up there. I don't know what Jokers was doing up there,
I
but
think they were sealing the
Parking lot of the hospital, but I talked with
they were
Steve this
blowing
week.
off the street. They were using their big blower to blow off the street, so that's why I thought they might be doing some civet. But you're right. It is kind of,
I mean, I have it all.
I mean, it's a fairly small section. But,
I think that's a repair. That's not a full overhaul.
okay, I just want to make sure that,
Something to pass.
And like I said, Joe, I talked with Steve and he's going up there to fill potholes
okay.
probably next week, he said.
But happy, so we're down to $200,000 for next year.
Yeah.
that looks to be roughly
Already
1.2, 1.1, all total looks like 1.1, 1.2. I just did some rough math.
Yeah, a long ways.
So in your summary, you noted 35,000 to 55,000 additional. That's on top of this estimated cost?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
We're going to do draft engineering and then construction engineering, about the costs we've seen.
So Happy, kind of a callback to item 1 on the work session agenda. We're able to define a requirement on that engineering that it can support a trash truck and we're building new streets basically where they were improperly built. So, those streets our spec that we're handing to an engineer will be suitable for 2 and 3 axle trucks to drive over and
Yeah. It'd be what's in our code minimum, usually on a residential street. It's going to be 4 inches of aggregate and then 3 to 4 inches of asphalt on top, or 6-inch concrete.
okay.
So they would go with that amount. That's where your cost comes in because now you're having to dig out, raise it back
Sure.
up, and then come in with a large amount of asphalt.
Yeah.
How long are you asking for him to last?
Forever.
You're above the road street, I think.
Well, I mean, so the point I'm making there though is that we have an opportunity with streets to do, like when you when you go down this list, we'll need rock base, we'll need rock base. All that's telling us is that we built streets that were improper before, and we need to do that the right way. And then that intertwines with that conversation from item one. If the
What'd you
streets
say?
are built properly, you can have trash trucks.
1.2 million,
Roughly, I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
200,000, so.
No,
Well,
but you've also considered figuring out a way to pay for it or try to, borrow money or get in a bond, this kind of gives you these are the main ones that we've looked at and received complaints about.
I mean, you wouldn't do that proportionally. You wouldn't say, hey, we require X, but we only have a part of X, so we'll skimp and I think that's been the mindset, and that's why these streets look like they do. So you can't do the entire list, but you can do 2 or 3 of them the correct way.
Well, but I mean, this list just gets longer as we only do 2 or 3. So we really do need to look at doing a comprehensive, big budget, probably a bond issue to get ahead or to catch up to where we're at.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So, I mean, it's just laughable to say we only have $200,000 to do for streets. And it's not, but I mean, we're going to try to build a new subdivision and put in brand new streets. And we've got the rest of the residents that are suffering under pea gravel. And so, I mean, to be fair to them, the ones that are paying the taxes now, we need to look at something a bit more comprehensive and a little bit more aggressive than 200,000. And it's going to have to probably be a bond issue where we're going to have to borrow some money and if we did some of these, we'd probably get some discounts if we did this whole list together in one in 1 or 2 years. There might be some savings there if we went out and bid, several of these projects together. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road and making fun of our streets and us not doing anything about it. We're gonna have to take a bond issue out and fix the streets.
I agree.
Okay, so Happy, when I questioned you on that very topic of a bond issue, your response to me was, we have the ability to bond for several $1 million. We have the assets to back those. We don't have a way to pay it back.
Right.
That's the problem. Now, can we,
Well, we are trying to build a subdivision and get 150 new homes under roof and to start building that tax base. We haven't looked at annexation to bring some additional rooftops. I know people don't like that forced or friendly annexation name, but we haven't done those things to start talking about bringing in additional revenue into the
Right.
city.
no, you didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry.
So if we don't have the ability to pay that back, say we take our $200,000 that we were going to pay, we pay that towards the bond issue, how far will that get us? That's my question of the only solution to get from point A to point B.
So you're saying 200,000 a year?
Yes,
Yeah, so you have to dedicate 200,000 a year for 5 years for that $1 million.
and that's not doing any other overlays.
Usually, we've had between $300,000 to $350,000. This last year, we just didn't see. We've had so much to do, and especially with sidewalks, that cut into what our budget is this year for streets. So that's why we have the $200,000 limit this year.
Instead of closer to 300,000 or 400,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at probably 150,000
One street.
outside of these, say, that you every year for the next 5 years, if you dedicated a certain amount of money to pay the bond issue or the lease purchase.
And I don't disagree with you, Joe. I see the point. Why build new when you can't take care of what you've got? But we just have to find a way to be creative and find some way to get both. So can we get our bond guy back in and
If you want to talk about that, yeah, we can do that. I think you may not be looking at bond so much as a lease purchase type of setup. Bond, usually we talk about general obligation. stabilization bond, require a vote or something to it's out of the transportation fund, and you just need to get secure a loan for that.
But would this be in addition to what we're talking about doing with subdivision, just throw on enough to do the streets? And essentially that would be a full bond, correct?
Again, if you can find the money to pay for it, everything, no, you could just pay out of your either general fund or the transportation fund and pay that off. So it wouldn't have to be an obligation, though, a general obligation. But
So we're still talking about an access road to extension out there for the new subdivision stuff of 1.5 million.
Plus infrastructure,
Pardon me?
plus utilities and,
Well, no, this is just a connecting road.
yeah. But I mean, if you're gonna,
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna do one without the other.
Right.
So.
So think about this, we can discuss it next month and really get into it. Because we'll have to make decisions, so we go out for bids or however we decide to pursue it, and we'll come up with a plan.
I still would really like to, to check into the bonding and stuff and have an expert opinion, there and stuff, because I just, in reality, there's not much other way.
If you want to do a large amount of something. Yes.
then we can renegotiate our alliance contract, because they'll be all caught up and they won't have to fill as many potholes. We'll save big there.
Steve already left.
I'm sure they'll get passed on.
Yeah, I had one other thing on the street overlay thing I wanted to talk about, because we have a couple streets, and I just mentioned one of them, the section of Rozier Street that was engineered, rebuilt, stormwater, curvings, and everything years ago.
Oh, you're talking about,
Many years ago.
between,
8, 9.
600 block of road.
Yeah. And now we have a couple of those streets like that that are showing their wear and tear. So is there any, I know we did out in front of City Hall, we did that at American Water, whatever it was, right in front of City
Oh,
Hall,
the overlay or the crack seal?
whatever it was,
Or mini slurry or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Or
That was Missouri Petroleum or something like that.
something like that. Is there any other opportunities to take care of some of these streets we've already rebuilt to prolong their life, or hell, they're going to be ruined in a matter of time?
gonna be on your list in 5 years.
Well, they're not on there now. They won't make it that long, but
so what we can look at possibly with that is a micro surfacing. The petroleum stuff, it doesn't, did we do that 10 years ago? Or what, did we do the road 10 years ago?
The road was redone, Ted.
Yeah, so it's probably lasted what it should have. It's close to its end. We could probably do a micro surfacing, which would be good for about 4 years. It's a half-inch aggregate that is laid over asphalt that's still in fairly good structural shape.
but there's none of the blow off of the chat and stuff from that, like there was with the oil and chip.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I seen up in Jefferson County.
Yeah, chip and seals can work, but yeah, it's, in this case, I wouldn't recommend it on that street.
Right. I know they were doing it on some state roads up in Jefferson County a couple of years ago, and it looked like and I'm thinking if the state approves it, why,
I mean, we can look into that. It's,
I'd just like to see what
That's what
kind
Rozier
of
is,
cost
isn't it?
there is with it compared to overlays and stuff. But I hate once we've redone something and went to all that expense and let it go expire.
right. Yeah, we'll check on that. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to discuss? Okay, with that, we will adjourn.